Welcome back to the Moana Waterpark series. Today we're diving into the second part of our Wayfinder Surf Coaster build. In this episode we're bringing the coaster to life with stunning theming, think cascading waterfalls and detailed transfer tracks and a fully immersive queue experience. Stick around because at the end you'll get to ride the full POV of this tropical masterpiece. Let's get into it. Okay, as you can see here, I made a little overlay quick up over the coaster here from a top-down view. And here I want to have included some elements. As you can see, we have a little realistic approach, and then we have some water basins and all that stuff. So this is kind of like what I am theming today, this whole layout of this surf coaster. Basically, in the start of this whole thing, I am building up a lot of rocks around the track. What's important about doing this is that it really gives you a little natural look. And then since it's Moana and like Polynesian, I feel like I could kind of like work my ways around here and kind of like add a lot more rocks into the theming, kind of like making it way more robust in that way. So I'm coloring it the sand color because I kind of wanted to have the earth where they kind of like wave over with the roller coaster, kind of like seems to be like the bottom of like a beach somewhere. And I feel like it's kind of nice with that stuff, especially when I mix it with the rocks and the foliage that I do later on. You might see a few things I've added. I did a lot of trial and errors with this, honestly, and one thing took another. And I kind of like went with this sort of style as you are seeing me do here. So first of all, I wanted to have the queue open, but since I felt like adding a transfer track building into this, I kind of like redid that, but I will do that later on in the video. But as you can see, I kind of like have this little tunnel situation here, and this is mainly just gonna be where it kind of like sways around into. And I recorded it, but when I kind of finished it, I wasn't surely how much I liked it in that sense. So I end up deleting the tunnel. It was supposedly be underwater tunnel system, but then I figured out the coaster goes so fast through this, so it's kind of like pointless in that sense. So you can see here I kind of like opened it up, and then I just kind of like made it open up underwater like launch through here as the coaster will do, and it kind of adds more to the effect, honestly. And I added in some waterfalls, as you can see here. That's kind of like doing the base of it, so it feels like, you know, you're the wayfinder, so kind of like moving the waves around, so the water kind of like is with you controlling the water in that sense. So the waterfall you're seeing as well is also something I'm working on later on that will kind of like disappear. The entrance into this, obviously the waterfalls on this side here, as I'm adding now, they will always be there and run, because I kind of want to have that feeling of it all, you know. So but yeah, adding this little waterfall ventilation system here, you know, where the water is supposedly come out from, and kind of like feel like making a little bit of realistic touches here and there into the build. And this is also kind of like what I do with this build here. So first of all, as I say, I wanted it to be a little bit underwater, like a lot of rocky mountain, a little bit of a underwater kind of bottom we're doing. And for each section of this roller coaster here, I'm really happy on how everything turned out. The coaster itself too is pretty smooth, I would say so. As I say, my only experience with this kind of coaster is the one I tried in SeaWorld Orlando, and I think my layout might be a little bit biased towards that in a way. It's kind of like what I have in mind, at least. So that's kind of like how the ride itself will be, with a little bit of my own elements to it and stuff. I think it's pretty good, but obviously the video here will have a POV at the end while you guys have seen me build all this stuff. I will eventually also add a cinematic and a single POV video for this that will come here in the next couple of days as well. But yeah, I really found it very fun here as soon as I kind of like got the gist, kind of like a little bit on what I wanted to do here. So as you can see, some places I'm kind of like doing some lot of heavy foliage work, and I'm still trying to achieve some sort of realistic approach with this. So I'm not going over the top theming, and I also took a little bit of a visit to Magic Kingdom a few weeks back, and I also got so much inspiration from that visit, and it's just very exciting to kind of like try to implement some of these elements as you saw in the park and kind of like into the game. And I've always loved to do that, and it's also a big inspiration source for anyone if they are like struggling a little bit finding what to do. Then go on Google Maps, go visit some theme parks, check out Pinterest. Like, there's so many options now to get inspiration, and yeah, it's just about to building then and not being a little bit more stubborn and believe in yourself. I feel like it's what it is. So, but as you can see here, I'm kind of like evolving with the build here. We're adding so much foliage and kind of like in making it like inside of a little like situation here, and don't have any like peaks where there's nothing. I'm trying like to get all the bare spots and filling it up with like foliage and greenery, rocks. And as you can see here, I'm also adding some crazy trigger water features right now here. That's kind of like going off they're unhinged right now, but they will also be added to a trigger system obviously as well. But yeah, we are kind of like just doing basically stuff here. There's not too much fancy about it. I do feel like that my ideas I had with this ride I kind of like build this through here. As I said, the only thing I had was the water tunnel situation that I eventually just didn't like, so I opened it up, and I feel like after that it just feels way more realistic in a way. And also like having all these sort of water features. You can see the coaster goes into this sort of little cave pit here where there's waterfalls, so it kind of like goes underneath and you have the water coming down. And I think that's very important for the Wayfinder here, that we kind of like get all these sort of water elements, since we don't really have a lot more other theming into this. So I feel like it should just be like very fast paced. And I feel like I kind of achieved that with this roller coaster. But as you can see now, I'm adding the special effect ring here as the trigger element. So when the coaster comes here at the end, it'll give you like a little bit of splashes. And I think that is a very cool feature as well. So I know we have transfer tracks and switch tracks and drop tracks and all that stuff, but I'm just going like a little bit of an old school way here of doing a switch track to, or transfer track to the roller coaster here. And that's also to kind of like incorporate a little bit of a realistic aspect here. I do not build a lot of roller coasters, and I do not like know like all the crazy deals about this, you know, like when it comes to transfer tracks and stuff. So I'm kind of like just trying my best here and kind of like just adding what I feel like is proper for a transfer track, and at least in this sort of thing that I have going on here. As you can see, I already themed a little bit of the queue here, as I mentioned, that I kind of redo a little bit of things. Like it's a lot of trial and error, as you guys obviously know about this game. It's always is, but I'm kind of like just doing the basic here. After that, I am covering it all up again with a lot of rocks, and then I am building the little transfer shed. Obviously, this is not a functioning one, and this is only supposed to be like for scenery almost, but in that effect that it supposedly has to work for this coaster here, right? So just having a little bit of these aspects into the build just does a lot, and I think it's a super cool view it gives when you come into the station and you have this little extra building on the side here, which I think is super dope. So what I did here is that I took the corrugated wall here and kind of like did a more basic realistic building for our roller coaster transfer track here, and then I decorated it with some thatch roof and just did some not over the top theming as the station is on the side. I do not want to take the view of the station away here. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did here, like using the tropical trim pieces here again, the wall piece here, and just kind of like give it a little surface. And then afterwards I go in and I delete some of these roof pieces that are kind of like clipping through. And then in this sort of little situation here, I was kind of brainstorming to what I could kind of do with the queue now, when I kind of like messed up my own first idea. But that's kind of like what happens when you build, like a lot of ideas, like it's just all of a sudden you are doing something else than when you first start off, because the pieces kind of like took you there, and ideas constantly come up when you are in the groove. And in this situation here, that's definitely what was happening. So, but in any case, I do duplicate a little bit of the building, mainly just the triangular top here. And then afterwards, I'm just doing some more coverage of the queue with the rocks, and hopefully just trying to make sure that the people don't clip through the top here, so we don't have any head injuries here. That won't be good when we're trying to build something realistic. And as you can see, they're kind of like walking through very nicely, and afterwards I'm playing with some lighting and stuff into the queue here, which also adds a lot of cool things as well. But back to the transfer track here, as you can see, we're just theming it very basic here with some stuff. I don't really add any wheels on it or anything. It's mainly just like this little situation here. It gives you the illusion of it, and that's all I kind of want to do and achieve with this. So I'm very happy for it. Let me hear what you guys think of it. This is also my very first transfer track in general. I don't think I've ever added one in Planet Coaster either. So yeah, it's fun. But as you can see here, I'm adding a little bit of extra stuff towards the end of the ride here. I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different that was not like just rocks and etc. as well. So what you can see here, that I'm using the Viking fences here, both the rocks and this guy. And then I'm adding a little bit of clutter, a little bit of rope attaching to the supports. And I think it kind of works very well like that. And yeah, I was super happy for this little addition here, and it just adds to the whole vibe of the roller coaster in general. And I think it's super neat. But yeah, we are moving more towards some other kind of like slow theming around the roller coaster here. As you can see, we're kind of like getting from A to B, and kind of like all these small holes between everything kind of like gathered nice together. And I really love how that is turning out too. You didn't see me build this little situation here, but I did add this like a little realistic dip into the ground, where it's like we have some concrete walls and stuff. And as I say, I'm trying to add a little bit of realism to it. So having that and also a little bit over the top stuff, I feel like it's the perfect combination, especially for a little Disney mini park as we are building here today. But as you can see, adding a little bit of walls, some foliage around there, and just trying to make everything look nicely together. Here is the little thing I told you guys about. I'm duplicating it and not keeping it too crazy, like too far away from the original concept here, and just kind of like keeping it on the roof with some basic elements. I found this corrugated sheet, which kind of works well for like one of those gates, you know, that goes up, that you see a lot of places, and I think it works very well. So I was very happy for how I achieved to do all this, and especially brainstorming to find a new goal, kind of like a new concept for the queue. And then I was like, okay, a lot of the queues in Disney were kind of like dark, and a lot of other theme parks is kind of like that, you know. So maybe I could just cover it all in with these super nice Viking wall pieces, and then adding in some nice little light and a few details here and there. And after I kind of added that, my idea with it were kind of like, okay, so this is what we do. So that's also why some of the things I did, I cut that out of the video, because I knew eventually I was going to delete it all again. So that's why it's all of a sudden just there, and now you're just seeing me delete it again, and it's like, oh no. But do not worry, there is a point with it all, and it all works very well at the end. But it's kind of like what I do with the queue. I skip a little bit of stuff because it's mainly just me doing a lot of rock work here and adding in some light here at the end. And as I say, when everything of that comes together, it just works really well here. I don't know if you knew that, but if you click L on your keyboard, if you're in the dark, light goes up, as you can see here. This is the one I have on now, and then you can kind of like click it off again, and this is kind of like how the lighting is now when you can't see anything. But yeah, I'm adding a little bit of a teal lighting here because I thought, you know, it's a little bit of a water ride, and it kind of gives a nice immersive experience when you have this sort of lighting in the queues. And yeah, I'm just super happy for that. And then adding a little bit of elements into the queue here, I'm adding in a little aquarium kind of thing. It doesn't really have anything in it besides some bubbles, but I thought the idea of it in the queue was kind of fun. So yeah, it was kind of like a little fun idea here in the queue I added. And then when you are in the queue, you can just like, you see some bubbles and stuff, but that's mainly what it is. There's not really anything else into it, but I thought it was a nice little fun feature to kind of like that you're kind of like under the water in a sense, even though you're actually going upwards. But I think the queue itself turned out pretty good, and I'm pretty happy for how everything kind of like works together nicely now, even though you do not expect the queue to look like this when you enter it from the outside. And yeah, it's just super neat. But yeah, finally, like, we are adding in the last, as I said, the last little basic pieces to the shed here, and it's not much. It's just kind of like to keep it nice, and then at the end we're just kind of like pipping it off with some more foliage and a little bit of fencing here as well. So yeah, it's this is my first ever roller coaster in Planet Coaster 2, and I'm pretty happy for how it turned out. And I've always wanted to, since I saw we had the surf coaster, I was like, I kind of want to try this coaster out before I try anyone else, because I did build other coasters in Planet Coaster, but I never really tried the surf coaster, so I thought that was kind of like a fun little thing to try do. But yeah, as you can see, we are slowly moving towards the end here before we actually go in and detail our roller coaster itself. And that was also pretty fun. That was also something that I did for the first time, and I gotta say it was really, like, I really didn't have any ideas in the start of how I could theme it. I wanted to do the raft from Moana, but I have a cool idea for that for a ride skin, which I'm gonna be building eventually. I know that's also kind of like the Wayfinder, the boat and stuff, and it would be nice to have it in here too, but it's just this is what it is, and we'll just work with around it, and I'm adding it to the next ride in the park. So we're doing some queue work here, which is basically just putting in some trims, and then afterwards we're kind of moving towards the end. And it's really fun to build stations like this, especially when you can detail them to a higher level and really use your creativity to fill up some gaps here. Because I've never really been a fan of these like black railings that you have. I really hope we could eventually move them in this game, but unfortunately it is not like that, so we just have to detail it as we now do. So putting in some lighting, of course, and then we are moving over to the coaster itself. And this was kind of like the first time for me trying to detail, customize a roller coaster, and I think I went pretty well with it. I thought I was gonna do like a little raft kind of vibe, so that's kind of like just what I try to do here, and I love the twinning and mirror we have on this function here. So I used the resort wall decorations, the wooden trim corners, and kind of like added that, and then afterwards I'm adding some little bit of ropes and a little lamp on the front, just to kind of like have that being the sort of light that will carry it throughout the ride, which it also does in the movie. So I felt like that building these sort of top here was perfect for the coaster, and it was kind of fun too to kind of see how you can add stuff to the coaster and kind of like have it riding around with it. So super cool. But yeah, that's basically what I kind of do. I'm adding that very fast. There's not really much to it, and then afterwards I'm adding a little bit of wood pieces to the coaster itself as well, and that's pretty much what's happening and what we are adding to the coaster. I also do add a little shed for our person that controls it, our controller here, as you can see in the back. I didn't record that, I just kind of like had it in the background, so you will eventually just see a little shed in the station as well. But playing around with some lighting here, and I thought, nah, that doesn't look good, so I just used the Viking wall light and kind of like added that to the top, and then afterwards it kind of looked pretty nice. Super happy for what it achieved here. And then afterwards we are adding some more on the other side of the track, also recoloring it so it kind of fits the brown kind of color we have. And then afterwards we're kind of like done with that, and then I'm super satisfied with what we got through here. And since it was the first time I kind of like detailed this, I thought it was kind of like a good step towards the right direction of customizing a roller coaster. And I think this it's not over the top of theming. It kind of like just very simple, very basic, and it's just kind of like what I need on this surf coaster, because it's kind of different to detail since it's like flat on the front and it doesn't really have a car as a lot of the other coasters have. So yeah, but the POV will start in any minute now. And guys, that wraps up the theming for the Wayfinder Surf Coaster. From waterfalls to the tiniest cues details, this ride is now a complete experience. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, comment your favorite detail, and subscribe for more builds. I can't wait to see you in the next Moana Waterpark episode. Until then, I'll see you around, and take care. Bye bye.